Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Val. So we're doing a director on director chat. So welcome to Valerie Taylor, the director of Vocal Dimension Chorus, who've competed in the Harmony Classic, I think 2 times, is it, Val?
Yeah, that's right.
We'll talk about. And you also sing currently in Nova Quartet, but previously you were champion with Domino Quartet of the region.
Yes.
And represented us in America. And you are the first non-North American judge in Sweet Adelines, and you judge in sound.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
And who are you, Nancy?
I don't know. Who am I? I've got my Heartbeat hoodie on.
Oh, very good.
Just in case you'd forgotten what chorus I directed, just to help.
You're the director of Heartbeat Chorus.
I am.
And champ quartet singer with The Mix and with Euphoria.
Yeah.
Were Euphoria the first quartet that made it to international top 10 or top 15 in our region?
Oh, yes. Thank you for remembering. We were the first to get over 600, and then we came 12th. So we were the first to get in the 15, which was marvellous. Went a bit downhill after that, but let's not go there.
Let's not dwell on that, no. And you're also a judge.
I am. I'm a judge in labs in singing. So we have a lot in common, don't we?
Sound and singing, same thing, yeah.
Sound and singing, exactly. So I thought to kick off, Val, it would be good. Your chorus met this week for the first time since lockdown. And I thought it would be good for you to tell us a bit about that, because obviously people will be really interested in how that went.
Yes, well, we'd spent a long time planning for it. There's a lot of research to read if you want to feel comfortable about all of the kind of safety precautions and so on, and guidance from other organisations, and also doing a bit of benchmarking with other choruses to make sure that what we were doing was, in line with everything else. So
how long did that take you, out of interest?
Well, I think part of the problem was that the government only made up their minds about whether singing was allowed at all in a kind of amateur setting in August. So whilst we had been kind of thinking about it, and I'd been attending as many Zooms as I could on what the risks are from singing, I think it was only sometime in August, towards the back end of August, when the government said, yes, singing in an amateur setting can take place in a COVID secure venue. So I guess it then took us, October, a couple of months to get the plan worked out, get it approved by the management team in the chorus, for the members to feel comfortable with it. And one of the kind of steps that's recommended is to engage with your members to make sure that people actually want to come back for a start. Do they feel comfortable coming back to rehearsals in that environment? So there's some time spent with that. I made a couple of visits to our rehearsal venue, and we rehearse now. It's one of those kind of silver lining things. Again, we used to rehearse in a church hall, which I know a number of people would have visited because we had a few regional education sessions there, but in a school hall, but that school got knocked down and they demolished it to rebuild a new school, which had no place for intervention, unfortunately. So we moved to a church, and the upside of that is that churches are, big, drafty buildings with a lot of nice airflow and a lot of space for air, for people to feel safe in that, and also it's a big church, so a lot of space for us all to be in and stay socially distanced as well. So I made a few visits to the church with my ruler and marked out all the spacing, but the church had done their own risk assessment, and they had a one-way system. They got sanitizer at every turn, and they also placed the pews in the church so that they had markings on that already, but I kind of tweaked that a bit to make sure our singers were, far enough apart. So in the church, which I think the central part could probably seat 300 people if you, packed them in, they could fit 30 under these new new sort of positioning. So anyway, so that it took a bit of time to do that, and we also wanted to let the members know what the process was for, you know, we have staggered arrival times, so everyone doesn't pile in at the door. So the sections arrived at different times. You know, there's a one-way system, sanitize. We had a QR code so you can scan in.
A QR code.
Yeah, I know, all the technology going on here.
All over it.
I'm not sure. I hope people did check in. So it's just another kind of layer, I suppose, of protection. And obviously everyone had to declare that they didn't have any symptoms or put positive test sort of on the day of rehearsal. So we have that on a Google sheet, you know, so there's kind of a lot of stuff that has to happen in the background to enable the first singing member to step their foot through the door. So that's, I guess, partly why it took a while to get all of that sorted out. And then, of course, there's the sort of threat of, is it going to be another lockdown? And is this even going to happen? And I've become a bit pessimistic about things, you know, because so many things just seem to get, you know, swept away, plans and so on. But then there was like, okay, Boris Johnson's going to make an announcement on Saturday, and I was thinking, oh, well, that's it, that's our rehearsal out the window. And then when he said it wasn't going to take place till Thursday, again, we had to check with everyone, you know, how do you feel about that? And they all said, yes, let's quickly get one rehearsal in while we still can. So it was great to have that opportunity. And I think we had 18 or 19 of our members. We've got about 30 members at the moment. Were able to be there in person. And I did the kind of simple 5-part exercise that I'm sure everybody in the region will know. And when we got to the third part where it splits into a chord, we all just went, oh, because it's the first time that anyone had heard a chord, apart from like the odd fortunate quartet who were able to sing together in gardens and things. But I haven't heard a chord since March. so it was nice to have that kind of float around the church. And we sang for 2 30-minute slots with a kind of 20 minutes blast outside in the cold to let the air settle in the church. So we didn't really have very long to sing. So we basically just sang everything we knew. I did the first half, we sang kind of rep songs, and the second half we sang Christmas songs, just because you feel like you should really. But we sang a song that we'd learned in lockdown, and that was really really interesting and lovely to hear that came together really well. So a song that had only been learned through Zoom, we sang that, and actually it had been requested for a wedding, which of course has been postponed till who knows when now. And the mother of the bride was delighted to hear that song come together. The other thing that was really good was we had a whole bunch of people who weren't able to attend, for various reasons, and we did a Facebook live stream for them, and the people watching at home said the sound was really good. They could hear all the voices kind of come together, and they were able to chat with each other on the Facebook live thing. So they actually enjoyed it, it seems, almost as much as the people who were there, which is a real relief for me, I have to say.
Yeah, and it's good to know that, isn't it? Because you're sort of thinking, what's it going to be like for the people that can only join on Zoom? So it's good to know for them it was actually a really positive experience. But it's interesting what you say about singing everything you know, isn't it? Because as directors in this hobby where we are striving to be so good at what we do, we're used to getting a song and we're working it, and so that's quite a different experience, isn't it? As well as, I suppose, when I sang in a park with 4 people, it was wonderful and great to sing, but also I could only hear the person next to me. So we're still going to have adjustments, I guess, even when we meet again.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I had adjusted my plan knowing that we were only going to have one rehearsal. So if this was the first of, many returning to a sort of slightly adjusted normal, then I probably would have done something different. But because I knew we had 1 hour to sing together before who knows when, I thought, well, let's just sing a load of songs.
Yeah.
I didn't really work on much. I might have stopped them and said, sing that better, but once or twice. But other than that, that was driven by the circumstances. I mean, from my perspective, I think I wasn't expecting the sound to be so different for me, because obviously the last time I heard the chorus, they were all on risers, and So, you hear the sound you're used to. And then I've been listening to recordings, which of course sound like the recordings. And then I could hear mostly the 6 people who were near the front, and there were people at the back. Obviously, they were singing, and we had the singers' masks on, which actually didn't make a huge difference, I don't think, to the sound. But I hadn't really appreciated how far away the people at the back, would seem. So
what you're saying, Val, is put you really good singers at the front. Is that what you're saying?
No. Now they're all going to be looking at this plan going, hang on a minute. Why was I in the back row?
Where was I?
And I must say, for the person who was in the middle of the back row, the reason that she was there was because I knew she was going to arrive last. So I didn't have her walking all the way through the church to the front, when... So there were other reasons why I placed people the way they were placed. But actually, someone who was in the back did say, I couldn't hear anything. And I think that there was a little bit of, because there was no one behind her at all. And she was in a row on her own. And so on the other side of the church, there were 2 people in the back row. So presumably they could have heard each other a bit. But I think the sound, again, it's like, okay, so now how do we make a positive out of that the singer might only hear people around them.
You might revolve the stack, so when people come another week, they hear different things. Gosh, that's interesting. I mean,
you don't want to always hear nothing apart from yourself, and whilst it might make them, make people kind of stronger as individual singers, you want to hear get a different experience, I think.
I think what's interesting for me is that we're still going to be adjusting to this, aren't we? We're still going to manage our expectations and be fleet of foot in how we think about all these things. Even when we return, it's not straightforward, is it? We're not going back to standing on the risers and doing what we used to do. So even if we use it. So, and we talked about this, haven't we, about social media, that sometimes I think on social media, the impression is, oh, what a marvelous thing we've been doing. And because on Facebook, or for me, I always put nice things on and positive things on, but I still think for everybody, there's always this adjustment, isn't there? And, positives, but also negatives to all of these things, Zoom and,
I think you can get, obviously, I mean, this is not news, is it? You can get a false impression of how wonderful other people's lives are, and other people's choruses for that matter, because I know there are some other directors around the world that I've seen, posted we met and it was awesome, and you probably don't hear from the ones who met and thought, oh, this is weird, this is different, haven't quite expected that, so you don't see those things. And I think we all just have to remember that we are seeing a very, curated version of people's lives.
Yes. And the same with Zoom, isn't it? That, yes, you have great weeks and how amazing that we have this tool to meet. But sometimes it's hard, isn't it? And it's hard for some people who can't join or just can't face Zoom on an evening because, they've been working all day. And yes, it's brilliant, the technology, but also, it's sometimes hard as well. So, yes, beware social media.
Yes.
for all of our mental health.
How have you coped with Zoom then?
It's been, for me, it's quite, as a director, I think it's quite hard because, you have to constantly evolve it. So you sort of come up with a plan. David Sankster described it as like a magazine show, and you have a bit of this, and then we'll do some live singing, and then we've got a guest coming, and you do your Zoom television program, and you think, oh, that's quite good. And then sort of 3 weeks into that, it's like, oh no, we've got to change this up again. So it's quite a lot of pressure as a director, and you're also putting it out into the ether, aren't you? And you're not getting, when you stand in a room with people and you sing, and then you sing better, and you talk to people. It's just all of that, coming back, giving, coming back, and it's a little bit lonely, isn't it? But it's great that we can do it, and we've had some wonderful guests, and we're still singing, and we've learned some new songs. I hope, although I've never heard my chorus sing it, I'm hoping they're not just mining. But now, as I say that, I'm wondering.
Well, I can tell you, there's a thing to look forward to is that hopefully the songs that you've learned will be like the one that we learned, and when you get to sing it, everyone will be great. And actually, I did hear another chorus director said, the good thing about learning things or singing along to recordings is that there's no like, oh, can I just stop and do that? I didn't do that right. Can we go back a bit? As a singer, you've just got to keep going till the end. So if you fluff it up, you've just got to pick up again at the next bit and carry on. So when her chorus were able to sing together, they sang a song they'd never sung before. And she said it went great from start to finish because everyone was used to having to start and go all the way to the end and stop.
Ah, interesting. But Valerie, I'd like to take us back to happier times.
Oh, yeah.
So, you visited my chorus and it was fantastic, and you talked about your time at Harmony Classic, and we wanted to hear about how you sort of developed packages and just that creativity. We were there in 2016 when you did the award show package, which was brilliant, and we really loved it being in the audience. And we've obviously all seen the Wimbledon, for which you got the Audience Choice Award.
Oh, I've got my trophy.
Oh, you got a trophy there, Val?
Yeah.
Show us your trophy.
Look how big it is.
It's really big. Gosh, that is big.
It's quite weighty. I'd forgotten how. Oh, look, I get a reflection as well. This
is my trophy, Val. Can you see?
Yeah.
There it is. I didn't think it's
lovely.
It's not big. It's not big enough, that, is it?
Is that the Chorus Champion Trophy?
It is, Valerie. Thank you. So I wanted you to play a little bit. I can't do it because I'm not in control of the Zoom. But could you just play a little bit of your Harmony Classic?
I will, thank you. Yes, this is the Vegas package we call it the Vegas package. It was the awards ceremony one, and it's the first song basically. So you'll see how we set up the theme and take it from there. Right, let me share my screen.
From Red Hill, Surrey, England, under the direction of Valerie Taylor, Vocal Dimension Chorus.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is very excited BBC entertainment correspondent Barbara Shop welcoming you to London's West End Musical Theatre Awards. What a splendid evening we have ahead of us. It's going to be simply marvellous. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've just spotted the well-known rapper Arpeggio. Miss Peggio? Oh, I say. Well, this really is my favourite evening of the entertainment year. And look, the stars are all here. You'll be swell, you'll be great. Gonna have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now. Honey, everything's coming up roses. She's had so many nominations over the years, but she's never ever won an award. I'm not supposed to have favourites, but I do so hope that this will be her lucky year. Just gotta put your mind to it, curtain up, like the light.
Exactly.
You have to shut her up. Hang on. She kept going.
Oh yeah, it's
There you go.
fantastic. We obviously at Heartbeat saw it in person because we were there, and just the sound was phenomenal. But yes, it was so funny and clever and witty in how you scripted it, and the performance of your Barbara Shop lady, whoever she is.
Yes.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
Karen James, yeah, she's a star. And I think one of the wonderful things that was revealed when we first started planning to go to Harmony Classic was how many people in the chorus had got these amazing skills that I had no idea about. And Karen has worked in amateur dramatics as a hobby for pretty much all her life. And she and her husband ran murder mystery things and did all sorts of stage work. And she just emerged as this perfect MC character. And, you know, we tried to kind of play on the Britishness a little bit and be funny without being too cheesy. You know, it's kind of, there's a fine line for me. I don't mind a bit of like, no, Barbara Shop, you know, but I don't much care for cheesiness or corny, you know, humor. So it was kind of getting that balancing that line. But yeah, she was just a gem. And because she was so experienced, I never had a minute of concern about what she would do when she stepped up to the microphone. I always had 100% faith that she was going to deliver a perfect performance, and she was just wonderful. And so she was our MC in both the sets, and they were kind of different in the way that we planned them, I suppose. So shall I tell you a little bit about the kind of how we got to these two different scenarios?
Yes, because when you came to us, Emma in my chorus asked, do you start with a theme or do you start with the songs? Which is an interesting question. But yes, talk about a bit about how you, and also visually, because it was so beautiful that you all did your own thing, but there was, you know, that linked together. So yes, that bit of that process would be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it is a really interesting question, that about sort of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. And when we did the first one, which was the Wimbledon set in Baltimore, and that was the one actually that won the small trophy.
Yay!
When we did that one, I'll just put it down. That was under the old system where Harmony Classic and the finals packages, you had 2 contest songs and then whatever else you could fit into the time. So I knew we had to do 2 contest songs, and like I guess most choruses, we've got a fairly long lead time on our contest material. So I wasn't planning to do 2 new contest songs. So I knew we'd have to kind of shape it around those. And also because it was our first time ever doing anything like this, you know, I'd never done put together a stage production like that. I didn't know what I was doing. And it turns out lots of people in the chorus had various skills, as I mentioned, but I figured it was more sensible that we sang songs from our repertoire and then put our effort into learning how to do a package and how to perform it, than trying to learn a whole bunch of new songs. So all the material in the Baltimore set were songs that we already knew, and that meant that we could all focus completely on the performance, you know, on learning script, on learning there's, you know, staging for the whole chorus all the time, all the way through. And so we were able to focus on that. So the 2 contest songs, they were kind of the centerpiece of it. And the idea for that was sparked when I went to see a workshop by Erin Howden and June Dale, and June was talking about how North Metro come up with their package ideas, and she was sort of saying, you know, you could look at sports, for example, you know, obviously in the States, baseball and American football are really popular, or ice hockey and things like that. And I was thinking, well, that's not going to work for us. You know, what kind of sports are there? I don't want to do football because I'm not really into it. And what sports are there that could be British and that I might know anything about? And so I just suddenly thought, oh, what about Wimbledon? It's like one of the most well-known things. American people who are going to be in our audience would know what it was, and so that's how that idea came up. And so then it was a question of making a story out of it. You know, within your 15 minutes, you want to try and get a story to develop, or some kind of, so that the audiences are left feeling satisfied at the end of it. Then in the Vegas one, which was the awards ceremony, the rules had changed. So we only had 1 contest song, and then you could pick 3 other songs. So it was a slightly different, we've got the experience already under our belts. Again, I picked the contest song, which was the medley of I'm Getting Married in the Morning and whatever the other song is with that. And so that was going to be the contest song. So that could what avenues could that lead you down? And I'm Getting Married in the Morning, it seemed like there were 2 sort of obvious story themes you could put to that. One is someone getting married, and the other one was it's from a musical. It's from My Fair Lady. So what could we kind of hang around that? And I think the wedding thing has been a bit overdone, or it's been done a lot already. So I wasn't massively keen. We had some, we chucked around a load of ideas in the kind of creative team about, could it be related to a wedding? Could it be about the bridesmaid or the hen party? And it all just seemed a bit cliched. So we went down the musical avenue, and then again, sort of through a process, came up with the idea of an awards ceremony. Again, it's something that's sort of neutral, known across any country. Everyone's got those kind of things. We set it in London so we could play a bit on the Britishness of it. But that meant that I could pick from gazillion songs from musicals, and I had a spreadsheet actually that one of our members put together. We got quite a few musical nuts in the chorus, as you might expect, and somebody put together a spreadsheet of all the songs that had ever won a Tony or whatever the award, so that we could say these are all award-winning songs.
Oh wow, I didn't realise that.
So I was perusing this and then thinking, so which ones of these have been arranged in barbershop style, and Everything's Coming Up Roses, I think, is also an award-winning song. And then the others were something from West Side Story, and as in the song is called Somewhere, but it's a song from West Side Story. And then the last one was a medley of songs. Again, they'd all already been arranged, but I got Joey Minshall, who's a fantastic arranger, to kind of splice them together in a medley. And that ended up that was Big Girls Don't Cry, Don't Rain on My Parade, and I'm a Believer. And we spent some time wondering how we could work Shrek into this package, but it all just became a bit much. You end up then with tons of ideas, and so you have to sort of thin them out a bit, otherwise it's like trying to cram stuff in. So that it was the music again did drive it to an extent, because I had the one song. Now you could start sort of from scratch, if you've got typically about 18 months to prepare, then you'd have to learn a contest song from scratch as well. So you could start with a blank sheet and say, we could do anything we want. But bear in mind, one of those is still going to be judged to kind of contest standards. So I think that's why, for me, so far anyway, it's been driven, sort of framed around the music choice.
So the songs she put together, were they existing arrangements that were they all her arrangements?
No, I had to buy them all separately.
Right.
I can't remember whose they all were now. One was, I can't remember the arrangers. But so I bought the 3 songs, and then she took bits of them, and then she did the links really between.
Oh, right, cool. Yeah, and I like the way in that clip you showed, you brought the music, you slowed the music down, then you had some more speaking, and then you went back into the song. That was really nice stagecraft.
I was quite impressed myself when I saw it again. But I have to, we had some great coaching as well. I mean, when we went to Baltimore, Dale Syverson came and coached us, and she was really good about the timing. And so you can see that I think that clicked with us fairly early on. So Karen starts talking, the chorus sing, and then in that slow bit, she comes back out. So we didn't have to have like a dead spot or wait for her to come back. She talked over that to set the scene a bit, and then we could just carry on with it. So it worked well with that particular song, that it had that sort of interlude in it.
And tell me about the costumes, because we've done a sort of, a free form. When we went to Ireland, we did cabaret. We said, wear your own black, looking a bit flapperish. And we sort of unified it with some black and red. But yours felt, I think, more unified than I think ours. We just wore whatever we liked as long as it was black. But how did you unify that visual look?
Well, we had a number of ideas before we ended up at that where we ended up, and Fran, who leads our kind of costume and visual team on that side, she and I went and looked at a whole load of bridesmaids' dresses, which were in sort of pastel colours, and I'm glad we didn't go down that route because we were, exploring all kinds of stuff. And then you think, how much would that cost to get, one dress made for each? But so we didn't do that. So after some, we did storyboards, and again, a lot of really creative people in the chorus helped with this, but putting together storyboards of what would it look like if we had these color themes. So the idea of black as the base, then with red and gold, or red or gold as accessories, came out, and that enabled some of our members also to wear tuxedos. So people who felt comfortable in trousers were able to do that. The front row all had the same style of dress,
right.
skirt. So if you look back at the video, they also all had a coloured petticoat underneath that was either red or gold. So they all had a kind of unified, there was a front, to the chorus that made it look
so the skirt was the same, but not their top necessarily.
Yeah, the tops were different. And I'm trying to remember whether it was a dress that they all had and then they like put different things over the top, or whether it was just actually a skirt. But because I was just reminding myself watching it again that, there are some people who've got gold coloured tops and some have got black. They were, but predominantly black with a red accessory for them, for everybody actually. So, but that does create a sort of visual frame at the front of the chorus to give that idea of unity. And then everyone else had their own black thing, well, wherever it was, trouser suit or a long dress, and then with red and gold. So it brought it together enough. And I think because you were also aware that this was at an awards ceremony, you kind of we wanted people to think red carpet, not just, well, what I might wear if I actually went to a dinner dance or something. So I think people had gone more sort of high end with it, perhaps. And that really, I guess, that probably is what set the scene for the individual costumes we have now. The thing I would say is that we have individual black, but they're all with lace, and that what it's like. Black is not just black when you get one black next to another black. So if you've got a black satin or a black,
a blue black or a green black or
absolutely. So if you've got black lace, that again creates a sort of unit template that you can put these color pops on. So I think that's what made it look more unified.
I'll go look at that black lace.
Yeah, so that's our current contest outfit is black with some kind of lace on it, and then different coloured accessories depending on what we're feeling like at the moment. We've had blue and we've had pearl coloured ones. But yeah, I mean, you've done some pretty outstanding performances yourself. I mean, your packages are also, I think, really creative.
Thank you, Val.
How did it feel the first time you got to lift up that trophy that's on the mantelpiece behind you?
How did it feel? Oh gosh, it was incredible. It was, it's just something you're always dreaming of, isn't it? And with all of our self-doubt and our imposter syndrome, I'm sure we're all the same. You're like, I'm not good enough for this, and I can't do it. And I think the year before, we'd had one of those situations where you'd sort of we'd come third and then we'd come fourth. And then we were, next year we could get in the top three, we might do really well. And sort of expectations ran away with us. And then we came fifth and didn't do what we'd hoped to do. And fifth is a marvellous place to be, obviously. But when you are aiming for something different, it was really tough. And I think from that, we kind of learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things about managing expectations, about, performing for the audience, not the judges. And so, yes, when it finally happened, it was amazing. And yes, and you stand there and they announce, fifth, fourth, third, and they announce second, and you're like, could it be someone else? Am I sixth? So yeah, it's an amazing thing. But, this hobby has great highs and also lows, doesn't it? And sometimes you're aiming for something and you don't get it. And I think probably both times we've won, it's what I've learned from that. When, often as a director, I think you're fine tuning and fixing and doing things. And then you go on stage and the nerves hit. And you can't quite do what you've done in the rehearsal room. So I think both times I've learned to, change our approach. The last time we did 6 weeks just on performance, because the time before we'd kind of gone on stage, made some last minute changes. We were all a bit nervous, and then you don't quite have the performance that you want. So sometimes out of those disappointments, I hopefully learn something useful. But yes, managing expectations and managing nerves and focusing much more on performance in the last few weeks has enabled us to do it twice, which has been marvelous. I'm still the champion, Val.
You're still the current champion, so you want lockdown to continue so you can remain the champion.
I'm hoping just to be the champion forever.
You probably get to keep the trophy now, don't you? No. Quickly ask you though, so do you think that focusing on the performance, I think that's a really interesting point you made about the last minute changes and the people were still in their head maybe, so the times that you focused on the performance were really what tipped it for you?
But yeah, both times. Sometimes I have to go to someone else for a bit of therapy. I think the first time we won, I went to John Grant in the morning and I said, John, I really want to fix that diphthong, but I'm not going to. And he said, that's correct, Nancy. You don't, let it go. So sometimes, yes. And this time as well, because we didn't have any changes, band changes. And then I tried to do a timetable, which was 6 weeks to go. Performance. We split the chorus in half. We performed it to each other. We did it in small groups. And it was all about emotional connection. And so, yes, I think that made the difference. As a director, you'd love to fiddle a little bit longer. I don't know if you're like that, Val. I'd love to fiddle a little bit longer and fix. But, for the performance, it comes better if you can stop doing that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's a lesson I learned quite early. One of our coaches, and I say that, we've only been going 10 years, but one of our coaches said at the beginning, it may not be perfect, but you've got to get past that and perform it now, because there comes a point where you're never going to fix whatever it is in time for the contest. So just sort of, okay, we'll draw a line under that. And also the things that you hear that bug you aren't even noticed by other people. So, it might not be the end of the world, or you want the audience to be so wrapped up in everything else that they don't notice the diphthong.
Yeah. What if they do though?
Then you get 699 points. And you go, damn it, I'm not a Master Director Gold yet.
So to finish, we thought we would talk about a piece of lockdown music. So not barbershop music, but other music to listen to in these crazy times. So tell us your recommendation, Val.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I love to listen to music, or I listen to it all the time, basically. Radio usually on. And one of my favorite pieces is by Vaughan Williams, and it's called Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis. And he wrote it in 1910. And when it was first performed, it went down like a lead balloon, as these things often do. But anyway, now it's one of the most popular classical pieces, I think, certainly according to Classic FM. It's an orchestral work, and actually I hadn't really realized this until I was just researching it. And there are two orchestras that play it. So they have two orchestras on stage and a string quartet.
Wow.
So, but it just creates such an evocative piece of music for me. And the music sort of soars and then comes back to real kind of quiet intensity. But it just takes me to a place of being really calm and free. Actually in open air is where I picture myself when I'm listening to it. So maybe that's why it's particularly useful for lockdown, because it might take you to a sort of a big outdoor space in your head. But I would certainly recommend it. So that's Vaughan Williams' Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I said I'd ask you this question and I'd answer it, but we didn't talk about it. But I've also chosen a piece without words, and I went to yoga this week, and which I've never been to before. Let's just be clear.
Oh.
No, and she was saying do these things, and I'm like, not with this belly, the yoga lady. But anyway, but there was a bit in it where she just said breathe, and I felt like crying, because just to pause, there's so much. And I know we're at home all the time, but there's anxiety, isn't there? Is this going to happen? And we're going into lockdown again. And how's my mum in London? And will I be able to see her at Christmas? And it's just like, just stop and breathe is quite emotional. So I also picked a piece by a jazz pianist called Bill Evans called Peace, Peace. Peace as in P-E-A-C-E, and peace as in, a piece of paper. And like you, it's my dad's favourite jazz pianist. And it's a very quiet and intimate, and when I listen to it, it's like the world after rain, when it's rained and then it's stopping, and but some of the rain is still dripping, but the sun's coming out. And I just feel when sometimes in all of this craziness, you just want 5 minutes just to breathe. And like you say, breathe in and think of beautiful places. So
I shall go and look it up.
Yes, have a breathe.
Add it to my calm repertoire.
Yes, and think about the world after the rain. When we'll all emerge.
Well, that's fascinating, isn't it? That we both picked pieces which kind of reflect on the position we're all in at the moment. And I like that idea of it being the sort of emerging from the rain, because there's also that beautiful smell, isn't there, and that you get after rain, but the promise of something better to come.
Yep. So on that note, emerging from the rain and the promise of something better to come, I think that's the end of our Director on Director.
Thank you, Nancy. That's been really fun to talk to you.
Lovely to speak to you as well. Bye.
Bye.